Over to you, Rob.
There we go. Right. Excellent. Well, thank you, Rory, and thanks for the invite. And thanks to everybody. Happy Saturday, everyone. I'll give you a very brief introduction to me to explain to you why I'm qualified to talk about legal jobs. And then obviously I'll get on to try and giving you some advice. I obviously don't know anyone on the call. I don't think so. I don't know where you're at in your career. So apologies if I discuss things that are not overly relevant, but hopefully you'll get as much out of it as possible. So yes, as Rory quite rightly said, I'm the CEO and owner and founder of GRM. We are a legal business strategist, a legal recruitment agency. We have been lucky enough to have won many, many awards and be recognized by our industry for excellence of service. We've had, I have, as you may be able to tell from my accent, I'm originally from London, but I'm now living here in sunny Cape Town. I have spent 10 years living in Asia, Europe, and the Americas and the Caribbean before that. And my entire career has been around legal careers, from law students all the way through to retiring partners. And I think I'm fairly well qualified to help you. One of the core, I mean, Rory just touched on there, one of the things that's very important to me, and one of the things that her and I have discussed at length, is about living your values. One of the things that I stand very strongly about is that if you are to comment on a career or a market, I believe that you should have lived there. I believe that you should walk the walk and talk the talk. That is why I'm living in South Africa. That's why I lived in Asia. That's why I moved to the Caribbean. That's why I lived in America. And Europe obviously was where I was born. So I think it's important that you get to grips with one's career and one's market that they work in by getting on the ground and really getting to grips with what really directs that market. So hopefully that'll come shining through in our chat today. So yes, I think I'm going to assume that a lot of you are close to either law school or candidate attorneys, or sort of just in the early throes of your legal career. I'm just going to assume you're in that sort of 5-year bracket. And please forgive me if I'm wrong, and obviously ask questions if you're not in that sphere. I think it's very, very difficult. Obviously, anybody that's studying and sort of making their first early stages in their legal career to, sorry, my screen's just gone. It's very difficult to make the decisions now that, sorry, Rory, Microsoft and Apple have decided to start trying to update themselves.
Sorry, Rob, I was going to interject. Guys, please mute yourselves because I'm hearing rumblings in the background. I would really appreciate it if you can. Yeah. Sorry, guys, please mute yourselves. Please mute yourselves.
I think maybe if you call the people's names and then ask them to mute themselves.
Yeah, guy, I'm hearing. Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Okay, like I said, I think it's very difficult to know where to start in your career and make the decisions now that will set you up for the future. One of the questions that I get asked the most by junior lawyers is, should I specialize or should I be a generalist? And that's something we can get onto slightly later. I'm obviously conscious of the time, but I think it's important that, and one of the things that we discuss quite a lot with our career coaching clients and the market in general is about being what we call future fit. And in law and on the African continent, and particularly in South Africa as well, this is really, really important to have a really clear understanding of where the business of law is heading, not the law itself, not the technical side. I'm not here to talk about specific laws and acts and cases and precedents. That's not my area. My area of expertise is on the business, the industry, what really drives the fees, what drives the salaries, what drives the career path that you can take. And I think it's really important to understand a couple of things. I'm sure you're all avid readers of your industry press, but you may or may not know that the legal market currently, according to some reports, has more patents filed each year than any other industry for technology. So the legal tech market in the last 5 years has started to really explode across the world. Some would argue that it's an industry that really needed to be reshaped a little bit, and there was a little bit and needed to be brought into the 21st century. But that just gives you an idea of the eyes and ears and investment that's available and really being driven into the industry in which you operate, or which we all operate. There's an very interesting website and newsletter called artificiallawyer.com. I don't know if any of you are signed up to that. It's nothing to do with me, but I just find it really interesting. And that's a daily newsletter that comes out about tech that's happening and investments that are being made. And I read the other day on there that last year, 2.5 billion pounds, so that would be my maths would say 50 billion rand, was invested in legal tech startups. I bring this into view for you guys because it is a major part of your jobs going forward. If you are not aware of what is happening in the legal tech space, please get aware. Now, obviously, legal tech is like any technology space. A lot of it is rubbish and nonsense and won't pass the test of time, but some of it will become very integrated with the role of a lawyer or a solicitor, barrister, whatever you may be. So I think that's something that's really important to get across to everybody, that if you want to be future fit and you still want to be, and this is a word we use in, it's quite a harsh word, but it's a word we use in the recruitment market a lot, and that is relevance. If you want to stay relevant, you have to admit that tech is going to be a huge part. I'm not just talking about, a computer, obviously. I'm talking about AI software that's going to read contracts faster than a human eye. This kind of software. This is all going to be very much part of your day-to-day, and we'll get onto it in a short while, how that's going to affect the job of a candidate attorney, a paralegal, a junior lawyer, and so on and so on. So the legal tech and the money and the investment globally is very important. A lot of eyes on that, and sort of mirror to that alongside it, is that a lot of eyes on the African continent, a lot of eyes on South Africa and other markets like Nigeria, Kenya, Egypt, Morocco, Ethiopia, Rwanda, growing markets, Ghana, a lot of eyes from foreign investment and also local investment as well. So anyway, that's a little bit about tech. And there's also also alongside those two things, tech and the African continent, is also the way in which legal services and specifically law firms will be offered to clients in future. Now, I appreciate Rory herself has moved out of practice and is in-house now. And for the purposes of this, I'm conscious of time. I may speak specifically about law firms because obviously they make up the bulk of where legal services is offered. Things are changing. The traditional law firm model and organizational chart is changing quite dramatically. And I'll give you a couple of examples of that. Here in Cape Town, we have seen a real growth in what's called alternative legal services or legal process outsourcing, ALS, ALT, LPO, whichever acronym you prefer to use. And that is companies such as Cognia, Radiant, Exigent, Herbert Smith. I think I've got an ALS outfit. Globally, there are hundreds. Eversheds has Evolve. Pinson Masons has Vario. There's huge, Allen & Overy has Pierpoint. There's huge numbers of firms and offerings being generated out of what they call legal process outsourcing. And it's, for me, it's sort of, how do I put this politely? It's kind of somewhere to store I say the easier parts of law, that some of the, I don't mean easy, but you know, some of the due diligence, some of the legwork can be stored into that, and can be, and then it's a price-driven service. Some of the other things on that note that aren't reshaping the way that law is offered is really the price and the price of legal services. And I'll go into a bit more detail now, but law has always been seen as a begrudging purchase, really. Let's be honest. Most businesses spend lots of big businesses spend millions and millions of dollars on law, and you know, they're always looking to shave that cost. So that is another thing that's really shaping the way that law firms operate, and law is changing very dramatically. And I'll give you a couple of examples on that front. Traditionally, law firms have, for hundreds of years, charged for their time. Lawyers have charged per hour. And what we're seeing now, and we've seen over the last 10 years, and this is globally, not just here in South Africa, but globally, we've seen a big push, mainly coming from clients demanding it, away from an hourly rate format into a flat fee structure. So settling on the amount it's going to be before going into it, which really reshapes the revenue that law firms are making. Obviously, that's very difficult to do in the litigation space, but more so in the corporate, commercial, and other spaces as well. That has a knock-on effect on the remuneration that lawyers are paid, and that has also led to, in the last 2 years, a major restructuring in the way that partners are remunerated. So you've got traditionally what they call a lockstep model in law firms, whereby, as you know, I mean, again, I'm speaking very general here, so please forgive me if I'm being too general, but law firms are typically LLPs, limited liability partnerships. They're owned by the partners. The partners, you know, if they have a good year, tend to take a lot of the profit out of the firm every year and pay themselves and handsomely and pat themselves on the back and go on a nice skiing trip to Europe. That is changing, leading on from the technology that's being involved, the price pressure that's coming from clients, and various other instances and examples. And it's leading to a dropping by major firms of the lockstep model and moving to a more merit-based remuneration structure. Now, that's making some partners very upset, because they were sitting around for 30 years waiting for their millions and millions of rands payouts, and now they're not going to get it. I, for one, welcome the move to a merit-based system. I think people should, lawyers have for too long have been able to charge clients per hour, and you know, maybe not working every one of those hours that they're charging. I dare say, and the merit-based system really has driven, and it's been driven by a lot of the international firms. So many of them whom are in Santon as well. So what that means is, quite simply, is that rather than each partner's being paid, you know, depending on their sort of point system or where they're at in the partnership, a fixed amount, it's now much more, each individual is being looked at. What are you bringing? What revenue are you bringing? What value are you bringing? What clients are you bringing? And each one is being paid accordingly. So now that has a massive knock-on effect to the way that you operate as a lawyer, and anyone who is in the junior end has to be wary of this, because it will have a knock-on effect of your current pay and pay going forward, but also what you can look at when you're, you know, being a future fit lawyer, and, you know, Yep.
Thank you so much for those insights. And I just wanted to add that, you know, it's very important to have this general view of where the legal market is going, and, you know, what are the forces driving the legal market, because then you will understand how to future-proof your own career, and you will understand then how to strategize your own career and make sure that you are a lawyer who people will want to hire, taking into account those dynamics, right? Can you just talk us through then how one would go about future-proofing themselves, or making sure that they're taking into account the dynamics that you have so aptly set out? How would one then, shape their, let's say someone right now is looking for a job, right? How would they then prepare themselves for an interview? What things should they be doing now if they're saying maybe in a year or 2 years' time, I might be looking for a job? What are the practical things that they can do to make sure that they are a good fit for the law firms, taking these dynamics into account and to future-proof their careers?
Yep, fantastic. That's exactly where I was going. But thank you, Rory. No, that's exactly the right question to ask right now. I think the first thing I want to get across to you guys is that as we move further into this sort of what they label as the gig economy, this is going to have a huge effect on your careers, right? But I want you to all remember that it's your skills that are being purchased, if you like. It's your skills. It's your education that you've gone through, that you've worked hard for. It's your articles. It's your skills that you've learned, and that companies are, looking to utilize. And I think it's. I come across too many lawyers in their careers who don't really think about that. And this sounds really quite. It's not ideal, but they don't see themselves as the real commodity, and that's what you are. And I think with the advent of websites like LinkedIn, Fiverr, Upwork, where it's the cheapening of law. So my first tip would be, don't look on those sites. Don't, it's a race to the bottom, and I can see on the Upwork people giving away SLA contract drafting for $5. It's like, where is this going? Are we going to give away legal skills for free? So don't be dragged into that world. Remember that you are the skill set, and you are worthy and worth more than some firms are looking to pay. In terms of immediate, what you can do to stand out, what you can do about with a longer term view, there's a lot you can do. I hope anyone who's on this call that is still studying, I hope that you're spending your summers and winter holidays getting legal experience somewhere, even if you have to work for free in an office, if you have to do Rory's photocopying at her bank, whatever you have to do, get some experience on your CV. Because I've met many students who haven't spent their summers working, and you're not going to be that relevant to a law firm or anywhere that if you haven't got that some experience to talk about on your CV. Plus, it will help you fashion where you want to go. You have to. Okay, so I can help. I can't help on this call because I'm conscious of the time, but I can help with CV formatting and how CVs should look in order to draw out some attention when it comes to looking for jobs. You should definitely do some level of video interviewing as well. You should have something on file that you can send with your CV if you're applying for jobs, because not only does it help you stand out, but obviously a lot of work is now done via this communication platform. A lot of your meetings with clients and a lot of your pitches will be via this. One thing that, Rory, I know you touch on in your social media, because I follow you avidly and your stuff is amazing, but you talk about communication skills a lot, and that is absolutely vital. You've got to remember, guys, that the last 10 years, law has changed. It's not just about the technical skills you learn anymore. You're not just being paid for what you've read in a book and what you've studied and all the experience of deals you've had. You've got to be part salesman. You've got to be a business developer. You've got to be able to hold a conversation. So, if you have the time, and depending on where you are in your career, look at improving your communication skills. Get help. Do some sessions with me or Rory or whoever out there to help you improve your communication skills, either via video or in person. networking is vital, and networking is not how many friends you have on Facebook, my friends, right? It's actual genuine networking, right? I've got 27,000 connections on LinkedIn. I don't know any of them, apart from Rory, maybe. That doesn't constitute a network. What constitutes a network is communicating with people. How do I do it? Again, we haven't got time to go into it, but if I don't know a client or a law firm, a partner, I usually find something common ground of interest, find them on the net, find them, and something that they may have been involved in, a deal they may be involved in, or something that may be relevant to them, and I reach out to them and I try to call them or I email them on that basis, and try to build your network, try to be relevant, try to be useful. So these are tips where you can really look at your own skill set in terms of communication, building your network properly. Again, we don't really have time to go into that. That's really a different session. I'll happily share tips with I can send some stuff to Rory and she can send it out to all of you, so that might be really useful, including CV templates and things like that. There's 20 million lawyers in the world. The question is, how do I stand out? Well, that is difficult to do, but again, it's all about relevance. Don't just blindly approach partners if you are looking to get into litigation and that person happens to be not a litigator, which happens all the time because you're blindly sending out applications, and make sure you are approaching them with something that's relevant to them, and go from there. If you have longer term goals, then you've got to look at more being ingrained in the tech space, whether that's a coding course, whether that's whether that's just really being up to date with what's happening, whether it's don't forget all of these legal tech that's coming out, things like Luminance. Luminance is a software that I know Weber Wenzel uses here in South Africa, which is, it can review a contract. It's AI machine learning tool that can review a contract in 0.09 of a second. That's not something that lawyers can compete with, but it's something that you can embrace and take into your skill set. So it's about having an understanding of that and being open to embracing technology as well. I'm conscious that the time is ticking in my top left-hand corner there, so I'm trying to get across what else I can get across. What else?
So I can see, Rob, I can see the time is going to run out, and I think we still have 20 more minutes. So as I said, at the start, what we'll do is I'll just ask everyone else to log on again so that we can do our last 20 minutes of the session. And then that would also give us time for people to ask any specific questions relating to maybe interview tips, drafting CVs. And it would really be great, Rob, if you do have some CV templates.
I do. I can send you everything. I'm happy to share as much as I can. I think you've got to also, this is an important thing to get across, is that I talk to lawyers and law firm business partners all day, every day. They are my clients. I discuss with them their strategies, their pain points. I talk to people in-house about, building their team so that they don't have to go to external counsel. These are all things that you need to be aware of. There's huge pressure on people like Rory in-house and general counsels to stop using external counsel lawyers as much as they do, because there's a pressure from within the bank or within the organization on costs. So legal teams in-house nowadays are much more almost a law firm within a bank or within an organization, because you've got to do all the things you would be doing within the law firm, but actually with one client in mind. So there's a huge pressure on fees. The way in law firms as well, I mean, I don't want to go on about the revenue side of things, but that's all they're talking about, is how to save costs, how to embrace technology, how that will improve the service that they give to their clients. And I think it's a wonderful opportunity at the moment. We're at a crossroads where technology is really coming online for law, and it means that all of you lawyers in the future will be much more business advisors. You'll be much more strategic rather than the old-fashioned lawyer, and that I find fascinating. I was talking to someone briefly last night in Lagos, a partner of a law firm there, And she was saying that her job has changed in 5 years, from doing long hours drafting contracts to much more about business advisory, helping businesses set up in Nigeria, you know, and being, you know, a confidant in business. So that's somewhere that law is heading. And that's good for you guys, because then in the future, you're learning much more about how businesses operate, and that will lead you into other positions, maybe operational positions, C-suite, non-exec director positions, etc., not just being a lawyer. So yeah, there's a bright future ahead for all of you, but it might not be in the old traditional way that law firms and law was always done. It's a big technology future out there for you. Oh, you're on mute, Rory.
Yes, we have about 3 minutes before we log off again, but I think there's still a lot more to chat about. So I'll just ask everyone to just log on again. I have been taking down notes from all these nuggets of wisdom that Rob is talking about, and I will sort of send a summary of his chat, like a bullet point summary of his chat. Then he's going to send me the CV templates and then other material that I can send to you guys after this. But I do think that when we please log on again, and then we can have more like discussions and practical questions. I see Dibelo has joined us again today. Thank you so much, Dibelo. Your hand is up.
Yes, hi Rory. I think I'll ask once we've logged back in so that we don't get cut off.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, obviously one of the things that I can talk about as well is how to prepare yourself now for a potential global career, and how to get that global career if indeed one of your goals and your drivers, like it was for me, which is to take your career overseas, and how to become relevant in each market. I'm not going to talk through all 200 countries and how you are relevant to each one, but I can give a more general view about how, if you want to go to certain places in Europe or America or Australia or wherever it may be, or up into further into the continent, what they might be looking for and how to position yourself for that. So I can talk about that. I'm conscious that we've now got 1 minute left. So
I know, it's so weird. It's like,
start something and then, yeah.
It's so funny, Rob, that you're saying that, because I was thinking for our next session, because I've gotten a lot of questions about working overseas. And I was actually, maybe can you just park that one? Let's like keep it and save it for another session, because I actually want to have a full session on that. And I was thinking, because I mean, I worked in New York, so I wanted, and there's a couple of people I wanted to so I wanted to chat about like how I got, because people ask me, you know, how did you get that opportunity? I know one person who's an Oxford Rhodes Scholar, so talk about that. And they then went to Oxford. I have a friend who's went to work in Dubai, and then a friend who went to work in London. So I was thinking of putting together like a session on just international work experience, and have each of those people talk like 10 minutes about each jurisdiction. But I think then having someone to talk about it from a recruitment point of view would be amazing.